There are people who are born not to be famous, not to be praised, but to quietly heal the world in a way only the heart can understand. On a distant mountain, far from the noise of the world, lived an old teacher in solitude. People called him the one who touched souls. No one knew where he learned his healing arts, nor how the medicine he crafted could work such wonders. But there was one thing everyone knew for sure, that this teacher didn't just heal illness. He awakened something long forgotten inside each person. He had no family, but he had 12 students, 12 flickering candles in the dark corners of life. Until one day, a fateful day, he left in search of the final herb. And something happened, a turning point that led to silence, doubt, and heartbreak. Today, I'll tell you that story. A story that's more than just a legend. It's a mirror reflecting us, those still searching for the miracle cure to return to who we truly are. On the peak of a mountain shrouded in mist all year round, far removed from the noisy world below, there lived an old healer in a humble wooden cabin. People called him by many names: the healer, the wise one, the mad old man of the forest. But those who had ever made the journey to that place, who had looked deep into his kind, gentle eyes, all knew one thing. He was someone truly special. He didn't just know how to treat illness. He knew how to listen, to feel, to touch a person's pain without needing them to say a single word. The way he placed his hand on someone's shoulder, never in haste, felt as if he were listening to a whisper from deep within their soul. This teacher never sought fame or wealth. All he left behind in this world were the people he had helped to heal. No one knew where he had learned his medicine, nor could anyone explain how the remedies he created, from roots, herbs, and wild plants, could cure illnesses even modern science had given up on. But it was said that he had once traveled the world, endlessly learning, failing time and again, just to find a cure not only for the body, but also for the soul. Though he lived alone amidst the wild embrace of nature, he was never lonely. For beside him were 12 students, children who had grown up at the foot of the mountain, former patients he had saved, or wanderers who had lost their way in life. They came to him carrying all kinds of wounds. Some lost their sense of direction, some carried deep anger, and some simply couldn't feel anything at all anymore. To him, they weren't just students. They were family. He taught them how to listen to the breath of the wind, how to sense the heartbeat of someone who truly needed to be touched. He passed down ancient knowledge, not just recipes for herbal remedies, but a way of seeing each human as a universe in itself, complex, fragile, and always in need of love. As time passed, under the patient hands and compassionate heart of their teacher, those 12 students slowly began to heal. They started to smile again, to feel the pain of others, to understand that true healing always begins from within. But then, one day, the teacher gathered them all together. His eyes heavy with something distant, he gazed toward the far-off ridge of the mountains. "I must leave for a while," he said softly. "I need to find one last herb to complete the most important remedy I've ever dreamed of." And so, he left. Behind him remained 12 students, a quiet wooden cabin, and souls not yet aware that they were about to face the greatest lesson of their lives, without their teacher by their side. At first, after the teacher left, everything remained peaceful. The 12 students continued their routines, tending the wooden cabin, practicing healing techniques each morning, and meditating by the stream every evening. But day by day, as the sound of familiar footsteps no longer echoed along the forest trail, and the warm, deep voice no longer spoke among the trees, an emptiness began to creep into each of their hearts. They missed him, missed the quiet, understanding gaze, missed the feeling of being protected, being guided, and slowly, that longing turned into impatience. They began to argue about who was more right, who was more skilled, who understood the teacher best. Then one day, in the teacher's storage room, they discovered jars of unfamiliar herbs and incomplete notes he had never shown them. Each page seemed to carry a mystery, unfinished formulas, untested ideas. A few of them eager to prove themselves, decided to create a new medicine based on what they believed was close enough. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but soon, each of them began to change. Some became irritable and reckless. Some fell into deep doubt, losing trust in themselves. Some were overwhelmed by random fear, lashing out in anger, then breaking into tears. Others withdrew into silence, quietly retreating into a world no one could reach. Only a few felt slightly unwell, but managed to stay grounded. They didn't realize that their own impatience and pride had led them to consume an unfinished medicine, a remedy not yet ready, a form of half-knowledge, which, in the hands of those without enough humility, could easily become poison. The wooden cabin slowly grew cold. No more laughter, no more shared meals, only silence or arguments. Each person became lost in their own inner chaos, trying to keep up appearances but deeply shaken inside. And then, one day, one of them whispered, "If only the teacher were still here." The words echoed through the empty room. No one answered, but in the eyes of all 12, there was now one thing they all shared: regret. They had once had everything: knowledge, love, and a guide to follow. But in their haste, in their pride, in their failure to wait, they had led themselves into confusion and pain. What they didn't know was that beyond the mountains and forests, the teacher, too, had felt the unease spreading in the wind, and he was on his way back. That evening, just as the last rays of sunlight dipped behind the mountains, the 12 students sat silently in the yard, each like a faint shadow in the dimming light. No one spoke. The exhaustion that had weighed on their bodies had now seeped into their souls. The once familiar wooden cabin now felt like an empty shell, a container holding all the mistakes no one dared to touch. And then a sound echoed from the trail, soft but unmistakably familiar. One of them looked up first, then another, then all of them. No one could believe their eyes. In the fading dusk, a figure slowly stepped into the yard. His back was slightly bent, his cloak dusted with the dirt of the road. But his eyes, still those same eyes, calm and clear, like the surface of an undisturbed lake. The teacher had returned. No words were needed, no tears. His presence alone was like a breeze that reached into the deepest layers of every heart. One student burst into tears and collapsed. Another rushed forward trying to speak, but his throat was too tight with emotion. The teacher looked at each of them, eyes gentle and quietly sorrowful. No blame, no anger, only concern and unconditional love. He asked softly, "You drank the medicine before it was ready, didn't you?" No one answered, but their silence said everything. He nodded slowly, then stepped into the herb room. His old hands began to work, still steady, still meticulous as ever. He ground, he blended, he lit the fire. He breathed rhythmically over every handful of leaves, every drop of oil. A fragrant scent spread through the house, a strange but familiar smell, one they had all encountered before. But this time, it awakened something long forgotten. When the medicine was ready, he returned with a warm bowl in hand. "This," he said, "is the remedy I've spent my entire journey perfecting. The color, the aroma, the sweetness, everything is now in balance. It will not only heal your bodies, it will help your minds remember the one thing that matters most: trust." A few, still clear-headed, drank it immediately. Their expressions softened. Their eyes brightened, as if waking from a long, heavy dream. But the others still hesitated, still doubtful, still afraid. They had been hurt too deeply by their own mistakes, so much so that they no longer dared to believe in healing. The teacher looked at them and sighed gently. Then he sat by the doorway, just as he had always done in the years before, and quietly said, "If you don't believe in this medicine, that's all right. But please remember, I didn't return just to heal your bodies. I came back to remind you that I have never stopped loving you, no matter how far you've strayed, no matter how many mistakes you've made." That night, after the fire had danced in the hearth for quite some time, the teacher still sat quietly on the porch, gazing into the deep forest. The 12 students, some standing, some sitting, some curled up in shadowed corners, didn't dare look him in the eye. Not because they feared scolding, but because something unfamiliar had begun to rise in each of their hearts. Shame. They had once believed they were skilled enough to replace the teacher, wise enough to heal each other. But now, all they could see in their own reflections were tired, confused, and doubtful versions of themselves. The teacher knew this. He didn't force anyone to drink the medicine, didn't lecture, didn't demand apologies. Instead, he told stories. He spoke of a man who once got lost in a desert, so thirsty he was near death, but refused to drink water for fear it was only a mirage. He told of a poor mother who made thin porridge every day, trying to hide the truth. There was no more rice in the house. And then, he told of himself, a man who once made a fatal mistake, mixing the wrong medicine, losing someone he loved, and nearly giving up everything because he couldn't forgive himself. His voice grew softer. My dear ones, everyone makes mistakes. But there is one thing even more important than healing the body. It's learning how to forgive yourself. He stood and quietly walked to each of them one by one. He said nothing, just gently placed a hand on their shoulders. That gaze, warm and still, like a candle glowing in the night, held no judgment, only acceptance, unconditional acceptance. One student broke down in tears, then another, then all of them. The sobs came like a dam finally giving way, after holding up far too long in the name of being strong. And in that fragile, trembling moment, the teacher held out the bowl of medicine again. He didn't say a word. This time, no one turned away. The first reached out with trembling hands, lifted it to his lips. The medicine was gently sweet, soothingly fragrant, like a stream flowing through a desert long denied water. The next drank, then another, until all 12 had received the remedy, not just through their mouths, but with their trust, with the courage to admit they had been wrong, with the belief that it was still possible to begin again, with the love of a teacher who had never truly left them, even when they had turned their backs on the very path he had taught. And so, in the quiet of the night, a new light began to glow, not from a fire in the hearth, but from deep within each heart, now gently healing from the inside out. In the days that followed, the wooden house deep in the forest felt different. No longer gloomy, no more arguments, no more cold, avoiding glances. The 12 students, though still physically a bit weary, gradually rediscovered a quiet peace within. They returned to tending the herb garden, cooking meals together, meditating in the soft mist of early mornings. But this time, something was different, as if each act was done more slowly, more mindfully, with hearts fully present, soaking in each moment. And in what seemed like only a few fleeting days, they came to realize something profound. The teacher didn't speak much. He didn't reteach old theories. He never once mentioned their past mistakes. Yet, he was always there, at the right time, in the right place. A gentle nod when someone succeeded in treating a difficult case. An encouraging look when someone found the courage to apologize. A faint smile as the group quietly shared dinner, wrapped in a silence filled with deep understanding. Then, one early morning, they woke up and he was gone. Only a letter remained on the wooden table, the ink still slightly wet. My dear children, a teacher does not heal you. He only reminds you that you've always had the power to heal yourselves. The remedy I left behind is not in the herbs. It's in your belief, in your love, in the humility to begin again, and the courage to forgive yourselves. Keep living, not as those who've never made mistakes, but as those who have fallen and chosen to rise. And if one day you meet someone as lost as you once were, do not preach. Sit down beside them and tell them your story. I'm leaving now, but I never truly leave you. The teacher, the 12 students sat quietly together. No one cried, no one spoke, but something inside each of them had shifted forever. They understood now. The teacher would not return, not in the way they once hoped, because he didn't need to. He had already left them the most precious thing of all, not a medicine, but belief in themselves. And so life moved on. They continued healing others, continued learning, continued making mistakes, but no longer feared them, because now they had learned one eternal truth. The greatest teacher always lives on in the growth of the student. The old teacher never returned, but in the hearts of the 12 students, he had never truly left. The remedies he left behind were no longer just healing formulas, but principles to live by, quiet values that carried them through their darkest days. And over time, as each of them began teaching their own students, they slowly realized that miraculous medicine had never been in the jars or herbs or fragrant oils. It had always been in awareness, in the courage to face oneself, in the ability to love, even after being hurt. And most importantly, it lived in the belief that healing is possible from within. When we're young, we often believe the remedy must come from the outside, that someone wiser, stronger, more perfect will come and save us. We forget that the only one who can truly heal us is ourselves. And that remedy? It's always been there, right inside our hearts since the very beginning. Some call it intuition, some the inner light, some say it's the voice of the soul. Whatever name you give it, it's a part of you, quietly guiding, gently reminding you of your goodness, even when you've forgotten how to believe in yourself. And the teacher? The teacher isn't always the one standing at the front of class, not always the one who's right. A teacher can be someone who once fell, but had the courage to rise. A teacher doesn't try to change you. They help you see yourself and choose your own way forward. A teacher can be a stranger, a book, a heartbreak, a loss, or even the wiser version of you waiting in the future. The remedy has always been there. The teacher is always present. The question is, are you ready to receive them? Are you ready to forgive yourself? To take off the mask of being strong? To step out of regret and into the journey of healing? If the answer is yes, then congratulations, because you're finally ready to drink the medicine life has prepared for you. And once you've healed, you will become the remedy for someone else. You will become the teacher, not by standing taller than others, but by living as fully and as truthfully as you can. And that is the greatest gift you can ever offer the world. If you're still listening now, perhaps there's a quiet doubt living inside you too. Maybe you're in the middle of a chapter where everything feels unclear, like being lost in a forest with no way out. Maybe you're exhausted because you've tried too many times, trusted too many people, and now you find yourself wondering, can I still heal? If that sounds like you, then please, let me say this. You're not broken, you're not too late, and you're not alone. All of us have been lost at some point. We've all swallowed a kind of poison, a wrong decision, a person who hurt us, or words that made us question our worth. And then we keep living as if that poison is part of who we are. We start to believe we're weak, that we're unworthy, that we're not good enough to be loved. But that is just the effect of the poison. It is not who you truly are. Just like the students in the story, you once carried a light inside your heart, a remedy, and it's still there. It never disappeared. You just lost sight of it for a while. You know something? The greatest remedy doesn't come from a teacher outside of you. It comes from the courage within. When you choose to rise, even without knowing where to go. When you choose to believe in even a faint spark of light, though everything around you feels like darkness. When you choose to forgive yourself, not because you've forgotten, but because you choose to keep going. And once you do that, you'll realize you are the remedy you've been searching for. You are the one who can redraw the map of your life. You are your own teacher on this journey. You don't have to wait for someone to save you. You only need to believe that you are worth saving. And if you've ever doubted that, then let me say it for you, clearly and wholeheartedly. You deserve to heal. You deserve to be loved. You deserve a new beginning, no matter how many times you've stumbled before. So if today you've fallen, get up. If you've gone silent because you've lost faith, whisper this to yourself. I will try one more time, for me, because sometimes just one more moment of believing in yourself is enough to change your whole life. Dear friend, life sometimes makes us believe we've lost our light, that we've strayed from the right path, that it's too late to begin again. But the truth is, that light has never left. It's been waiting for you, right within you, waiting for someone brave enough to believe again, to love again, to keep moving, even with a heart that's been broken before. The most miraculous remedy in life doesn't lie in anyone else's hands. It lives in your heart, in your will, in every moment you choose to rise. On the days you almost gave up, and the teacher you've been searching for may have been there all along, not in the form of someone else, but in the deeper, stronger version of you. So if life knocks you down again, don't lose hope. Remember today's story. Remember that you were once given a precious gift, the right to heal, the right to live fully, and the right to begin again. Thank you for listening, and may you always walk your path with a mindful heart and a light that never goes out.